surprises have come out in favor of the former governor of Jharkhand. As we've said over here, you can see the support that she's been able to gain. Murmu has a particularly interesting career. When she was the governor of Jharkhand and Jharkhand was being ruled by Raghubar Das, a BJP state government, she'd actually sent back a certain set of laws that she felt were not treating tribals properly. So she stood up multiple times to the government in charge. She is the possible next president of our country when you take a look at the numbers. On the other side, you have Yashwant Sinha, a UPA candidate. Now, particularly interesting because why it's interesting here is that he's been a 3-decade member of the BJP. His election here is thought to be a particularly interesting move, a particularly interesting choice by the Congress and, of course, the TMC and the other parties that are in charge. Now, as you can see over here, he's already supported by the UPA. You actually had Rahul Gandhi go with him while he filed his nomination. A number of other allies like the TMC, as my colleague Pallavi Ghosh was just telling you right now, the TMC and Congress has been particularly vocal about the fact that they will have their support behind Yashwant Sinha. All right, very quickly now, we're going to walk you through political reactions to his nomination. Take a look.
मैं समझता हूँ राष्ट्रपति और उपराष्ट्रपति पद के लिए दोनों ही ऐसे प्रत्याशी चुने गए हैं जो जमीन से जुड़े हुए हैं। हमारे राष्ट्रपति पद की उम्मीदवार तो एक मिसाल होंगी, देश की 50% आबादी की प्रतिनिधित्व करती होंगी और जो हमारे सपना देखा था पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी ने कि पायदान की अंतिम सीढ़ी पर खड़े हुए व्यक्ति तक भी आज़ादी की रोशनी की किरण पहुंचे, आज उस सपने को साकार हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने और हमारी पार्टी ने कर दिया है। राष्ट्रपति पद की जो प्रत्याशी हमारी लाई गई हैं वो सबसे बेहतरीन है।
सभी लोग जो विधानमंडल में भारतीय जनता पार्टी का कार्यालय वहाँ 9:30 बजे हम लोग सब लोग एकत्रित होंगे और सभी लोग अपने अपने मंत्री के समूह के साथ अलग अलग समय पे हम लोग जाके अपना वोट डालेंगे और मुझे लगता है जो जीत है वो सामने द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी की होने वाली है।
And some breaking news coming in. BJP MLAs in Rajarghat in North 24 Parganas en route to the assembly for press polls. Why is this breaking news? This and more visuals we're going to be showing you through the day today of MLAs en route to make their way into the elections. Presidential polls are set to take place. An interesting matchup as we're seeing Yashwant Sinha on one side, sure to get a large number of votes from West Bengal. Let's go over to my colleague Shagota Mukhopadhyay to understand more. He's our West Bengal Bureau Chief. Shagota, for our audiences, 2 questions for you. Firstly, could you explain to our audiences why Yashwant Sinha is likely to see the strong backing of the Trinamool Congress? That's question 1. Question 2, our focus, these visuals coming in from North 24 Parganas, a particularly important, newsworthy district in West Bengal. Tell us more.
Well, you see, Yashwant Sinha is the candidate of the opposition and also a former Trinamool Congress leader who was selected unanimously by the opposition party. So obviously, as far as the Trinamool Congress is concerned, Yashwant Sinha would get the party's backing and votes. That's the reason why Yashwant Sinha would be looking forward to the support of the Trinamool Congress, which obviously has over 200 MLAs in the Bengal Assembly for their votes. As far as Droupadi Murmu's support from Bengal is concerned, the visuals that you see right now are visuals of BJP MLAs, 65 BJP MLAs who were stationed at a private hotel in Rajarhat in North 24 Parganas in the outskirts of Kolkata. They were stationed at this hotel overnight and are now moving towards the Bengal Assembly in 2 separate buses. And would be voting together. The reason, and this is quite unprecedented, why these BJP MLAs were, stationed in one particular hotel, is because they were, given some training on the process of voting by senior leaders of the party, including the leader of opposition in Bengal Assembly, Shubhendu Adhikari, last night, and perhaps also because of the fact that the BJP wants to ensure that there is no cross-voting that takes place in the presidential polls from Bengal, and we do know that the voting process is one of of secret ballot. Where it is not possible to know who exactly is voting for who as far as the MLAs are concerned. So in order to avoid any possibility of a cross-voting, these MLAs of the BJP were brought inside this hotel where they were imparted this training, a workshop as you would call it, for proper process of voting, so that no votes gets lost in any manner in the process of voting. And they are all now headed towards the Bengal Assembly, in two separate buses. We can see that some of these Adivasi or the MLAs from the tribal community are also dressed in their traditional tribal outfits, attires, and are going to the Bengal Assembly today. And voting would start at around 10 o'clock. So obviously these MLAs are expected to reach the Bengal Assembly before that. Back to you.
All right, Shagada, thank you so much for all of that context. For our audiences, very quickly now, I want to walk you through some more political reactions to this story. Take a look.
हम लोग पॉलिसी के हिसाब से हमारे पहले दिन से हम लोग बीजेपी के विरोध में हैं, इसलिए जहां भी बीजेपी है एनडीए में है, हम उसके अलावा उसके ऑपोजिट पार्टी कैंडिडेट जो है वो हमारे क्या नाम है यशवंत सिन्हा साहब, उनको हम लोग वोट देंगे। इस देश में ये नहीं चलेगा, जल्दी से जल्दी इस राज को खत्म करना पड़ेगा। ऑपोजिशन और रूलिंग पार्टी का सब मामला एक साथ में मिलजुल के हमेशा होना पड़ेगा, तभी मुल्क आगे बढ़ेगा। हम लोग क्या बोलेंगे, हर चीज को जो मोदी के खिलाफ जाता है सबको उन्होंने पार्लियामेंट में बैंड कर दिया। जो भी चीज मोदी को बोलते थे ऑपोजिशन वाले वो सबके सब बंद कर दिया कि आप बोल ही नहीं सकते। हम लोग के मुंह में ताला लगा दिया। ऐसा थोड़ा ही चलता है, तानाशाही है।
आज़ादी के 75 साल पूरे हो जाने, अब तक सभी पार्टियों ने बात की कि हम पछात लोगों के लिए, हम पिछड़े लोगों के लिए हैं, हम गरीब लोगों के लिए हैं, उनको हम अच्छे पद के लिए नॉमिनेट करेंगे। अभी किसी ने किया नहीं। और जो पिछड़े इलाके से या पिछड़े नाते से आते हैं उनका भी डेमोक्रेसी में अधिकार है, उनको भी उच्च पद मिलना चाहिए। और हमारे नेतागिरी ने द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी को पसंद किया। 111 पूरा का पूरा मतदान भी हमारा हो रहा है।
हम सब लोग चुनाव में वहां जाकर मतदान करें, ऐसी एक पार्टी की भी व्यवस्था है। और सभी हमारे आदरणीय मुख्यमंत्री भूपेंद्र भाई पटेल जी की भी योजना है।
All right, very quickly, let's take a deeper look at where all of the parties that are going to be in Parliament and across the country voting today align. What do we know so far? What are the parties that back the NDA's pick, Droupadi Murmu? Let's take a very quick look, starting from the left. Obviously, first the BJP, next the BJD. I'm going to point out for you, the BJD, the JMM in Jharkhand, these are parties where the question of which side they would align quickly closed when the answer for the NDA's presidential candidate was a tribal leader. It's thought that partly because of her tribal identity, it was so clear that, for example, the JMM and the BJD would side with her. Now, you also have the AIADMK down south, though this isn't entirely surprising. They have in the past been a BJP ally. You have the JDU, also a BJP ally in Bihar. Another particularly interesting party, the Shiv Sena. Here it's important to note the Shiv Sena, you might remember, just went through a rift. Chief Minister changed over from Uddhav Thackeray, who you can see in this photo, to Eknath Shinde. Despite that split and despite the Uddhav Thackeray faction still being formally allied with the Congress and the NCP, they still came out in support of the NDA candidate Droupadi Murmu. Now, very quickly, let's look at the candidates that are still barred. All right, we're still taking a look at the parties that are backing Murmu. Again, as we said a little while earlier, I don't know if you remember, but on the previous slide, we'd shown you from Andhra Pradesh, the party in power, the YSRCP. But what's particularly interesting is in the same state, the opposition, TDP, also supports Murmu. So you've got both major parties in the state supporting the same candidate. Now, as you can see over here, a number of the other parties, 2 Punjabi parties that are in her support. Very quickly now, we're moving on to those who support, as you can see, Yashwant Sinha. Now, let's take a deeper look over here. Some of these aren't entirely surprising. The Congress and the TMC. Yashwant Sinha is a former member of the TMC. Therefore, this support is very clear. A number of critics and analysts said that unlike what was expected, the Congress didn't actually play Big Brother as the negotiating was taking place. This was very much an equal table of negotiation. You did have Rahul Gandhi from the Congress actually accompany Yashwant Sinha as he was filing his nomination. A number of other parties that have come out in support of him. The RJD down in Bihar, the RLD in Uttar Pradesh, the SP also in Uttar Pradesh. Aam Aadmi Party, this was a party